Hey guys, welcome back to the learning series in the DCS F-18C Hornet. This is episode 3, and in this episode we'll be covering the radio, taxi and takeoff. In the previous 2 episodes we covered cold start as well as cockpit familiarization. So let's get started guys. So I will first taxi, then we'll take off, and once we're in the air I'll discuss the radio. Okay? So now the first thing that you need to look for when you want to taxi is obviously you need to have the parking brake off. So that's off at the moment. Then you can set your lights, your instrument lights, position lights, formation lights, whatever it is that you want to do. Then you need to make sure that the ejection seat is armed as such. Then you can adjust your seating height to whatever that you desire. Okay, so at the moment we can see that there's the letters NWS on the bottom right hand side corner over here on the HUD. Now what does that indicate? That's nose wheel steering. So the Hornet has a mechanism where the front single wheel acts as a steering point. So basically that wheel pivots left to right. So there's a button for this nose wheel steering in the control options. You need to map that to either a key on the keyboard or something on your HOTAS, a button on the HOTAS. However, when you start off in the Hornet, you don't need to press anything to have nose wheel steering on. It is on automatically. And then when we want to start rolling, we slightly increase the throttle until we see RPMs of about 70 to 72%, and we start moving. Now make sure you don't increase RPMs beyond 75%. Okay, so again you can use your toe brakes to brake. Now if I hold down the nose wheel steering button, you need to hold it down, you see NWS high. Basically what does that mean? That means that the nose wheel steering will now turn sharper. So basically it will allow you to turn in much smaller turning circles. Now again, remember, this is a Navy plane. So this is something that is absolutely necessary on an aircraft carrier deck or in storage. So here's the normal nose wheel steering. Left rudder to move left. Right rudder to move right. And when we have the nose wheel steering high, I'm holding down the button, you can see that we're turning much more sharper now. Okay, you can do much sharper turns when you're at NWS high. Okay, now generally the Hornet is an absolute pleasure to taxi with on the ground. It is an absolutely wonderful aircraft in taxiing. Okay, it's like a Cadillac, really smooth, really smooth, really stable, an absolute joy, really. You know, some aircraft are really horrible at taxiing. You know, I'm looking at you, F-86 BF-109K4. Okay, so this aircraft is absolutely a pleasure to taxi on the ground. Now we're just going to enter the runway, line ourselves up with the center, hold the brakes. Now it's really important to line yourself up down the middle of the runway. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do, this is really cool. So we're going to turn the left DDI, go to the support page, then we'll click checklist. Now this is really cool guys, at least I think it's it's really cool. You got checklists for landing as well as takeoff, and then also right here, this is a live measurement of your aircraft's weight. So basically as the aircraft consumes fuel, our weight is going down. How cool is that? Now the takeoff checklist, obviously it's got controls, wings, trim, flaps, hook, harness, warning lights, NWS low. Now this is really interesting. So that's nose wheel steering low. Now this is what I was going to get to next. When you're taking off down the runway, you do not want nose wheel steering engaged. Okay, because at, let's say, like 90 knots, if you try and move the aircraft using the nose wheel steering, it's going to be pretty wild. Now at the moment I did not see any controls for the nose wheel steering low. I looked through the controls and I couldn't find anything. So I'm guessing that's something that we're going to get later on, once the aircraft has progressed throughout its early access phase. But at the moment, you can just turn off nose wheel steering like that. So it's back on, now it's off. There's a switch for that. There's a button in the controls that you can map to your HOTAS to turn off nose wheel steering. That's what I do. I just use rudder to maintain directional stability, because at higher speeds obviously the rudder has more authority. So let's get going. Let's do a final check. Everything seems good. Let's make sure that the anti-skid is on. Yes, it's on. Okay, now with regards to takeoff, okay, so for takeoff I haven't seen in the early access manual mentioning any kind of numbers in terms of speed, you know, any kinds of, you know, takeoff speeds or whatever. So but like with practice, in practicality, like I've seen speeds anywhere from 120 knots to 150 knots is where the aircraft begins to take off. So somewhere between 120 150 knots, but generally it's really easy to take off. Okay, so let's do one final check, I should say. Brakes held, engine throttle up to 80%. Okay, so it's at 80%, and we're looking for an EGT temperature of no greater than 800 degrees, and we can see that it's at 617 and we're at 81%. So back to 80. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that's all good. So brakes held, throttle advancing, brakes released, and we're in afterburner now. And all you need is a slight back pressure on the stick, guys. You don't need to pull back really hard. There we go. Just a slight bit of back pressure on the stick. And now I've got the stick neutral. Okay, landing gear up and flaps to auto. There we go. And she's off. How cool is that? Very easy aircraft to fly. An absolute joy to fly this aircraft. So easy, so smooth. And you want to come off afterburner very quickly, guys, because the afterburner will use a lot of fuel. You can literally sit here and watch your fuel go down in real time once you're in afterburner. So there we go. We're in the air. And that's the Kasab airfield, tucked away between those mountains. The Hornet is actually really fun to fly. So stable, so calm and so peaceful. So we're going to go ahead and turn the right DDI onto our attack radar. There we go. Make sure that our radar is on. Yes, it's on. And normally I switch the left DDI onto the HSI, so we can use it to navigate. So guys, let's get started on the radio system. So first, I'm going to put the aircraft into autopilot, basic barometric altitude hold, and I'm going to put the aircraft into a bank, and then we can talk about the radio. So, the radio, guys. The F-18C Hornet in DCS has two radios. They're called the RAC-210s. Okay, it has two radios. Both are capable of VHF as well as UHF. Okay, both can transmit and receive in ranges of 30 to 400 megahertz. Okay, now you can pre-program 20 channels for both radios. Okay, 20 channels. Now you can program those channels in the mission editor. Okay, so you click on that icon that looks like sort of like an antenna, and then you can program 20 channels for COM 1, which is radio 1, and 20 channels for COM 2. Okay, those are preset channels. Now the actual operation of the radio is quite simple. You come up here to this dial here, or this knob, and just pull it. There we go. So that's radio 1. That's for COM 1, radio 1, and this side is radio 2. Now, down here, you can see a 1. That's suggesting that we're on channel 1, one of those preset channels, okay? Now, whenever you set a frequency for channel 1, that automatically becomes the channel, your communication channel between you and your wingman, okay? So we won't worry about channel 1. Now you can move the channels with the middle mouse button, okay? You can go up all the way to 20, okay? 1 to 20, and then you have some additional channels, and I'll explain those in a minute. So we'll start with M. M basically gives you a manual option. So that is really cool. That means that if you haven't preset a frequency for a channel, you can just do it while you're in the aircraft, okay? You can set up a frequency on the keypad right here on the UFC. We'll do that in a minute. Then you've got the G. The G channel is basically a guard channel, which I have no idea what it's used for, to be honest. It doesn't say anything about it in the manual, in the early access manual. Then you've got the C, which I have no idea what it is. And then you have the S. The S is a maritime channel. Now, the radio itself, all the different functions here on the side. For example, this one is guard, okay, and this SQCH is squelch, basically. So you can turn it on and off like that by clicking the button that corresponds to that thing. So when you click that, it basically, you can hear radio static. You push that in, that basically gets rid of the radio static audio. This thing right here, CPHR, that's not active in the early access. That's not available. And then we have AM and FM. Okay, so let's talk about the channels. So obviously channel 1 is between me and my wingman. And on here, on this display right here, it's called the scratch pad. You see that the frequency is 120 megahertz. So that's 1 to 0.000. That's 120 megahertz. So, but it's not as easy as that to use the radio. You need to go ahead, go to your controls. So I'll just show you guys. Go to controls, F-18C sim, and then you need to map this button, guys. Okay, so you need to map this button as well as that. So COM 1 and COM 2, you need to map it to something on your HOTAS. I've got mine bound to these two buttons on my throttle. Okay, this is really important. If you don't have this button mapped to a button, you will not be able to use the radio. Okay, so if you want to broadcast something to my wingman, for example, I'll go to COM 1. That's with my throttle button set to COM 1. I'll go flight. For example, I will say cover me.
Flight, cover me.
Okay, so that means that he can hear us. Now if I don't have that button pressed, which I just showed you guys on my throttle, let me underpress that button and let me try again. Let me try again.
Flight, cover me.
Now he can't hear me because I'm not on COM 1. Okay, that button is really important that you map to whatever it is that you want to map to, either your keyboard or your HOTAS. Now I've set the ATC frequency for Kasab Airfield onto channel 3. Okay, so that's channel 3. Let's go ahead and contact ATC.
Chevy 1-1, request navigation assistance.
There we go. Okay, so we could talk to Kasab Airfield. Now you might ask, well, what about if I haven't preset a channel frequency and I want to do it while I'm in the aircraft? So let's go ahead and do that. So we select M, with my mouse wheel, you select M. For example, I have an AWACS somewhere out there, and I haven't set the channel in the mission editor. I want to just do it here manually. Okay, so what you do is you hold clear. That gets rid of that pre-existing frequency, and the AWACS I've set to 251 megahertz. So I do 25100, okay, 25100, and then I hold enter. Now it's really important that you don't just press enter, you press and hold. Okay, when you press and hold, it's there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and contact the AWACS.
Dark Star, Chevy 1-1, request picture. Chevy 1-1, Dark Star, single group at bullseye 256, 470 at 7,000.
Okay, so as you can see, it works. And obviously you've got the volume control right here. You can increase the volume for COM 1 and COM 2. In terms of the radio, you've got some more volumes here, volume knobs here, but I'm not sure if any of those have anything to do with that. Okay, other than that, you've got two switches down here at the back here as well, to the left. I'm not sure what these do. GXMT, COM 1, COM 2, Cipher, Plane. I'm not sure what these do. Now, as I said, the Hornet is an early access, and the manual for it is also an early access version. It doesn't say anything about these buttons here, but so far for what I've described is all you need to do your basic communications in the Hornet. However, I see many people complaining, you know, like saying that they can't use, or they're having trouble using the radio, and that's because of that button, guys. You need to map that button to something where you can switch between COM 1 and COM 2. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to communicate. Okay, so I've got Dubai International on channel 3 or channel 2, I think. Yeah, let's see if we can contact them. So we'll go ATC Dubai International, and let's say request azimuth.
Chevy 1-1, request navigation assistance. Chevy 1-1.
There we go.
Yes, you're heading to 07.
How cool is that? Okay, so we know that the radio works, and this is how you use it, guys. Okay guys, so this brings us to the end of episode 3. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, or if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye.